Didn't get that note.
There we go.
Hey, everybody. So officially kicking off for our site critique today. I'm AJ Davis from Experiment Zone. We specialize in conversion rate optimization only. So that's all we do is make sites better optimized for orders and revenue. Lori and I will be co-running this. So Lori, you want to introduce yourself?
And I'm Lori Appelman. I guess most of you know me, but that's not always the case in here. I'm run an agency much like Igor and Jason. So we build them, we market them. We also collaborate with other firms because sometimes there's somebody like an AJ who has expertise that absolutely outscopes what I have. I mean, I just don't have the same level of expertise here as she has. So if you can afford her, and I'm not saying you're outrageous at all. I'm just saying she's worth the extra money, and that's why we would support her. And that's why I can say I've worked with Jason and actually, Igor, you're doing some things that look pretty interesting. So I like to keep track of who else is out there and what their strengths are. Anyway, we pulled together this group. Initially, it was strictly in Austin and strictly in person. With COVID, we moved online, and I know everybody's a little bit Zoom burnt, but we found it really nice because we've been able to expand our audience outside of the local vicinity. AJ still runs, what are you, once a month or once a quarter?
Once a quarter. Yeah, we do 3 kinds of events. So each quarter we do a store critique like this. So we love to bring together store owners and share examples of some things that are working great, some things that could be improved. We do a quarterly topic as well. So next month we're going to be diving into click tracking and heat map analysis to really understand how people are moving through the pages, what to learn and take away from those, and what not to conclude from it. And then the other thing that Lori was alluding to was I'm actually still here in Austin, despite Lori and I running this Austin group for 6 years now. And what we do now since COVID is we do bring people together. It's just very informal. We get coffee together once a quarter in the morning, and we just share what we're doing and find opportunities to collaborate. So that's a lot of fun. It's a very different environment than the Zoom stuff, but I think it all comes together pretty nicely.
And as far as topics go, if there's something you really want to know about, because our goal is really to give you the information you need to make good decisions, because so much of this is a choice. Which review app do I use? How do you pick these things? And that's the critiques are nice because so many people work on their own site. And even if you don't, you want to provide valuable input to your designers. And so we do the critiques just to kind of keep people on their toes. I will start with saying that because we don't have access to 100% of your information, these are very high level and they're based on observation and best practices. We do recommend if we turn around and say, hey, we think this should be different. If you've got the traffic to do an A/B test, that's always the best way to make sure the change is actually correct for your specific audience, because there is no hard and fast, this works all the time. So
I have a great example of that. I'm going to pull up this site while we talk about this.
Good.
There's a piece of feedback I've given on this call several times, which is provide a narrower selection of your products. And we've been running this idea of a bestsellers being in the first position on every navigation. And most of the time when we run it, we see and learn all kinds of stuff about how people use sites, what products they're attracted to. But we did just run it with a client where it hurt their conversion rate. So again, like Lori's saying, we can't always assume it will work for our audiences. It might actually point to other problems, like their bestseller page wasn't organized, didn't have the right products. But we're going to do our best today to learn from our experiences and pull ahead from there. I have the plumbingdeals.com up first. Lori, do you want to kick things off with some feedback on the homepage?
Sure. And by the way, this site looks great. And my first impression is certainly positive. Plumbing sites, I expect to have a massive amount of products. So that big old search bar is a big deal. And you've done it and it's visible. This is attractive. Now, I do have a question for you, Brenda. Is your audience mostly consumers or contractors?
It's actually a solid mix, depending on what particular product area you're browsing. So something like kitchen redesign type things would be more consumer facing, but we have stuff where it's like pumps and more technical pieces that contractors look for.
Yeah, I asked because as I hinted to you on Facebook, I'm in the market for these kinds of products. So your site got a pretty good dig in, and the first thing I would say is that you're clearly your focus. You're not trying to find the best way to put it. You have nicer stuff. You're not carrying the cheap garbage. And
Correct. That is main thing for the website, is to focus on high quality stuff.
And that's perfect. And your look certainly expects that. But a lot of times the people who spend that kind of money are using contractors and designers and things like that. So that's why I asked what your audience was. To me, the actual look and feel feels very much like a consumer friendly site. Was that your intent?
It was, because one of the things we found is, in terms of contractors, they usually know exactly what they're looking for. So they type in a SKU or UPC, whatever, and they can go directly to the page where we focused on there, putting the information at top and then making sure all the specs that they need are listed. But then for the consumer who's going to come in and search, they have more of a the ability to browse and look through by finish and that kind of stuff. So trying to really hit both how they're shopping.
Yeah, great. And that's why I asked these questions, because you can imagine her answers dramatically impact how the site should be designed. They're very different audiences. So anyway, I like this. I like your categories across the top. I think you've got a call to action. You've got your value proposition, which I hit right on the nail. You're carrying more upscale products, which is great because not everybody wants the cheap stuff from China. You've got your value propositions right there. One
note I'd add on to build on what you're saying, Lori, is I think thinking about that split audience, one of the things that you might think about doing is, what can we help you find, is a nudge to just kind of generally use plain language. And I wonder if you could give an example in there of like the plain language, comma, like SKU or something like that, to nudge contractors and knowing that your search will work for them as well.
Okay.
I think something like that could just be helpful, kind of we assume they're going to jump in there, but maybe they're not so confident that you'll be able to search or interact with the site by SKU. Lori, you were talking about the brand message too, which I agree with. I think this create your own sanctuary in your home for ultimate relaxation is actually probably the stronger part of the message than elevate your experience. I'm curious if you agree with that, Lori.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes almost every time I look at a site, my recommendation is to flip it, because usually this sentence ends up being more direct. And we actually want people to focus on what matters. And so confirming that this is about ultimate relaxation in your home is different than elevate your experience, which could mean that, but it could also mean I'm getting an airplane. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing with that particular phrase. So you might just get rid of the elevate your experience and just change the H1 to match the sanctuary in your home concept.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're just starting now that the redesign is done, is looking at testing a lot of those things. So running A/B testing and checking, because it's like you said, it can be really simple, or is it too wordy for them? And what does our audience actually want? So that's something I'm looking forward to starting here next week.
That's great. I'm glad to hear your A/B testing. That is really critical for anything above the fold. Anything that's copy can really influence, especially bounce rates and people just jumping in to start shopping.
So as we scroll down, to be honest with you, the next section, the browse products, I don't have a problem with it being on the homepage. I just don't think that it belongs above the popular categories. Primarily because the odds with the size of the catalog I suspect you have, that those 9 products or so that are being featured here include what I'm looking for, are slim to none. So I'd rather just dig right into the shopping and go look for a 2-piece toilet or a Japanese bidet, which is absolutely on my list.
And I think there's
And-
maybe another, like a third option. I think your point, Lori, is well taken of
Yeah.
there's lots of reasons people come. I wonder if instead of featured what's new and trending, if for your context, having those be the most popular categories and surfacing maybe the top 3 products in each as a way to kind of jump into products could be a way, like it could be an interesting test to run to see if you kind of bridge both of those goals of showing all the different categories you have and starting to feature specific products for people to have their attention be drawn to.
And there's some of that underneath the categories. By the way, I like the way you laid out your categories as well. I think this is a nice way of including a bunch of subcategories without taking up too much geography. It's clean.
I agree. It's a nice layout.
Lori, may I
Yes,
comment?
please.
Can we go back to that browse products section real quick? So if you click on what's new, I noticed that the items in there don't have images. I just wanted to call it out for brand. You do want to make sure that those come up.
Yeah, those are things we quite literally are actually working on like this minute. So they're at points that sometimes they are without images. Hopefully that'll be fixed in the next 20 minutes. But it takes time for the data to sync. But those are the products that are quite literally what are the newest on the website. But yeah, that's a good point. That is something we try to focus on. And that's one reason we didn't lead with what's new, because we know that's an issue we have.
Makes sense. And then one other thing that I noticed that the add to cart button on those products only shows up on hover, and for non-desktop devices, when you don't have a mouse, that CTA is not visible. So you might want to consider making that a little bit more prominent if those products are important enough, and if you want people to add them to the cart with a single click instead of knowing to tap on it and then hit add to cart after that. Make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a good
And
call.
actually, I was going to say, I do have the mobile. I have Browser Stack sitting here so I can play with the mobiles on some of these sites, because we're looking at desktops, and actually I'm going to guess that's the appropriate audience for most of your shoppers who buy.
Yeah.
But one of the sites I have that we may cover today, I posted primarily because I was shopping on my phone and the experience was so horrendous that I bought from their competition almost out of spite. So, my reaction may have been a little too visceral, but, that kind of, in this day and age, most stores cannot afford to ignore their mobile, and if anything, should be designing their mobile site first. And what Igor picked up, that you don't have the, a buy button on the category, on the product type cards, there's nothing on mobile, which means you're requiring somebody to actually make another click and an extra click to make a purchase if that's what they were looking for. So,
and I'm going to offer kind of a different perspective on it, which is we found in testing some products that they convert better to an order if you take them to the product detail page instead of offering the option to do a quick add to cart. So that is a good A/B test for your audience specifically, because for a $2,000 toilet, it may be enough to add to cart right now, but they may not get the details they need to persuade them to purchase it now, and they may end up not converting overall, even if they're more likely to add to cart.
Yeah, and that's actually also on the testing list. My previous place I worked was actually a mattress website. And we had that quick add to cart and then tested it and found it didn't work for those customers. So the thought with this was put it on and then it's easy to turn off and test versus, trying to add it in later. But that is definitely high on our list because like you said, I found where it does not work.
Let's stay there. That makes sense, because typically the higher price, the more people want detailed information, and the more technical, because we've had pool and hot tub site. He said that the amount of returns he got when they could just buy it with one click was astronomical, because he's selling motors and parts and things. When they go all the way to the product detail page, his returns drop to almost nothing. And it really just has you know, those are the kinds of things you have to look at when you explore what works best for your audience. So I like this product page. Let's see, I'm actually on a different one, but that's okay. The big thing here, there were a couple of things that I would say I would change. One is you've got this project pricing, but when I click it, it's just a tooltip. This would be a great place to install a quote program and maybe even change the labeling on it so it reads my project, but allows them to build together a whole setup of everything they want, and then they can come to you with that. The other possibility would be bulk pricing for your wholesale clients, because obviously most people are not buying 10 of these at a time, but somebody building a hotel certainly would. So
so I was going to kind of bring that up because I remember I feel like she said about half, she was like half B2B and half B2C. And I feel like the B2B portion of this isn't really called out very well. First of all, great URL. Wow, that's a super powerful URL, by the way. Like Plumbing Deals is awesome and good looking site. But if you guys are trying to grow your wholesale or B2B section, I would probably have some sort of a call out for contractors or businesses, because it is a very B2C centric looking site for sure.
yeah,
that makes sense.
Oh, sorry, Brenda. Let me not cut you off.
No, I was just saying that makes sense. And that is one of the things with the project pricing. It was supposed to go live with the Salesforce integration, but we're having problems with it. So the idea was to create a form that they could fill out. And then we have a great sales team here that can reach out and work with everybody individually. So that is where we'd like to be. But when something doesn't work, you just put the call us number and we'll deal with it in time here. That's a good idea. That is something that we did not focus as much on is B2B side. It was mostly B2C. So that is something good to call out, and that we should definitely think about how to integrate better, both on the product page and on the site as a whole.
Yeah, and was this this is one site where I think a wish list, and again, rename it my project list. People putting together their design, especially the consumer market, are going to, oh, it's up there. I missed that completely. But you may want to also use an advanced wish list app on that so that you have the ability to contact people with products on the wish list and suggest that, deals and sales and low inventory and et cetera, et cetera. You can use it like a browse abandonment, except it's for people who added to wish list.
Do you have any recommendations for that? Because we actually, the original wish list wasn't even working on BC original old theme. So we didn't dive into that. But if you have recommendations, I'd love to hear who people have used and liked. I
like the Swim guys. Do you guys recommend a different app, or you build that out custom up for your stores? Jason, Igor?
We've typically used the out of the box on BigCommerce. But so one of the questions that I had in there is, are you on BigCommerce Enterprise? And if so, are you using any of the B2B features?
So we are on Enterprise. We do not actually have any of the B2B stuff. So this company actually has another, it's a brick and mortar face that is strictly B2B, and they have their own website. So we kind of put that on the back burner for now as they work on their side.
Gotcha.
But it is something that at some point we'll want to work on.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Then, you're probably doing what you should be doing at this point if you're trying to not steer traffic away from the B2B side.
I think one thing I'd throw in here too is that one of the themes on product detail pages is getting the right balance of details above the fold versus having information further down to answer for people who need it, but not for all consumers. So where that's coming to mind is like the SKU, UPC, condition. Are all the products new in the site or not? And maybe even simplifying the title of availability or shipping. to really focus on what are the decisions, what are the piece of information that will nudge people who are just on the fence, ready to add to cart here. And then the last observation I have that we've seen varied responses to, audience dependent, is when to start messaging programs like Affirm. So particularly when you're on the high end of the market, that may not be what nudges them to add to cart, but it might be a choice they're wanting to have during checkout. So that would be something I'd throw onto your testing list as well, as seeing if that reminder, that nudge is helpful, or if it's potentially distracting to check, it's free shipping, I know I can get it, here, well reviewed, things like that.
Okay.
You also have in stock
May I
couple
also
places.
give a few more pieces of advice on this product page, please? Okay.
Yeah.
So couple of things that I noticed is, and I want to echo what AJ said, to me, your primary CTAs, add to cart, on this is kind of at the bottom of the page fold to the right side. And that's typically, from usability studies we've done, that's typically the last place that people would look at. At least on this page, I would tend to move the quantity add to cart and payment links a little bit higher, maybe even above condition, availability, and shipping, because that information, I would think it's secondary. And on a mobile screen, I'm looking at it on my phone, those add to cart and quantity don't even show up above the page fold. So there's an opportunity there, I think, to, again, like, to move it above the fold. And I say it for multiple reasons. And hopefully AJ will echo me on this. You have kind of three typical buyers that you have. You have emotional buyers who are land on a page, click, off they go. They don't care about what else is on the page. They don't need to do research, or they might already bought this product in the past if it's a contractor, right? So you want to make sure that you make that experience as easy for them as possible. Then you have your researchers type of a group who want to know details, reviews, and et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of keep building that story. And then towards the bottom, the last group, they're like people who you just need to nudge a little bit more with scarcity to say like, hey, this is your last opportunity. And this kind of, the last group probably applies more towards landing pages rather than the product detail pages. But standard, kind of what I've seen work best, if you organize your pages following kind of those three typical rules, that helps maximize the conversion rate based on what I know. I'm curious what AJ has to say on that too.
Yeah, and I almost think that third group is the group we can have the most influence over with the page design. So the overall architecture makes sense, as you outlined. For a researcher, they're going to dig through the whole page anyway. The way I think about it with that first group is, when I land on a page, I want you to tell me what I'm supposed to do here. And so when I land on a website and there's not a call to action, I'm not really sure what the business is selling or doing or wanting. I can infer, obviously, in e-commerce, but you're adding extra work for them. And anytime we can take work off someone else's plate, it's less time, they can get there quicker. And even if they're not ready to add to cart, they need that research and extra work, they can keep scrolling, but they remember that action at the top of the page and can get back to it easily. Igor, I love how you describe the research sessions you do. And I used to nerd out this for a second. I used to do eye tracking studies in grad school. And so we see a lot of things like what people are drawn to. The like heuristic that I now use, I call it the squint test. It's kind of silly, but if you sit back and look at a screen and squint, the thing that should stand out to you is generally the thing that we look at when we look at eye tracking studies. And so I like to, like, an example here would be, if you squint at this page, what stands out? It should be the button and call to action. But there's actually quite a bit competing for that. So if you kind of focus in and out, that free shipping draws your attention. If you're above the fold, you don't have anything at all. And so making a bigger add to cart is a very simple way to just subtly nudge what it is you want people's attention drawn to.
Absolutely. And, to piggyback off of that, just one little thing from the usability perspective, Brenda, right? Brenda, I know you guys just did a redesign or going through the redesign. What I noticed is design patterns that are used on this page, they're a little bit conflicting. So for example, your in stock kind of looks like a button, but it's not clickable. Then right next to it, the exact same pattern, but it is interactable and clickable, which might be confusing to the customer. And if you scroll down below the buttons, you have need help, those buttons are actionable, but they look like text. So just a little bit massaging, I think, will help there. And just to echo what AJ say, make sure that those secondary and tertiary items don't compete with your primary CTA, which is your add to cart.
And if I could just jump in, sorry, I was late. I just want to introduce myself. I have been an e-commerce, BigCommerce store owner for a handful of years now. I have designed a few stores myself. I think the site looks absolutely awesome. Just a couple of things that I noticed on the product page. We get a lot of the times, I mean, people asking if stuff's in stock, and we then had to make our inventory count really large font, made it red, so it's like in their face. This is just super tiny. The in stock 119 just seems kind of small. And to piggyback on what Igor said, like, yeah, it looks like a button, but it's not. But project pricing is a button. So that's just kind of one thing. I do really like how the chat button pops up live chat. We use live chat as well. Haven't seen this yet, but I definitely would like to implement it ourselves, where it's just a button to then pop up live chat, which was awesome. The specific product that we're looking at doesn't have any reviews, but if you look at a product that does have reviews, I don't know what app that you guys are using. The font is just very dark. It's kind of hard to see. Just kind of my just thought there. And then another thing that's really worked well for us, these reviews are great. I was looking on the About Us page. There's like just some reviews there. We really put on our homepage like a thread from like what our customers have to say on our homepage. Like, yes, some people may get to your About Us page, but on the homepage we use Stamped.io, and they were able to kind of build it's like a feed that's constantly feeding, customer reviews. So I think it would just maybe help putting something like that also on the homepage as well.
Social proof.
That's great.
Yeah, that's good feedback. We actually, as part of the redesign, are switching from shopper approved to Yotpo. So I think there are still some things that we need improvement. You can see there, if you scroll up a little bit, we do have one little area where we have some of the reviews included.
Nice.
And the goal is to build that out a little bit more. But when this was implemented at first, we hadn't moved over. So there's a little gray area as we transition all the reviews over and get everything updated right now. But no, that's really good feedback to include more of that.
Yeah, and then like right there where that is showing that review, that the font color is white, very easy to see. On the product page, it's like a dark gray. It just really kind of blends in with the background.
And just a tip for copywriting too, you can often borrow from customer reviews to figure out the words or the reasons they purchase, and that can help inform your hero copy. So Brenda, you had mentioned you're probably going to do some hero test copywriting or copy testing. And that might be a way to kind of think about what kinds of copy resonate and kind of reflect the voice of the customer more directly.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, Lori, should we switch sites?
Oh,
Yeah.
AJ, just one last thing. Overall, what I typically also do is run the site through PageSpeed. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. So I did it for the plumbing deals, and the performance is on the lower end, meaning like out of 100, I think for the homepage, the performance on mobile is 30 out of 100 and desktop is 47. So there's an opportunity for you to make the site faster, which Google really likes, and that can help you get better search engine positioning for the keywords that you're currently ranking on. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
And that's another one. If anybody has recommendations on services or apps or anything to use, because when I've reached out to BigCommerce themselves asking questions about certain things to speed up, I haven't had a lot of success. So I'd love to hear feedback on how to make that better.
So the performance typically is tied to either infrastructure like hosting, or it could be tied to the code that's created, like your theme and things like that. The theming portion, my agency does that type of optimization, so happy to chat if you want to. And the infrastructure, depending on where you hosted, if it's self-hosted, we can help you with that too. Or if you're hosted by a provider, like for example, Magento does self-hosting, you might need to sometimes talk to them as well. So hopefully that helps.
And I'm noting that as a good future topic too. We've done some page speed optimization calls or topics over the year, but I think that could be its own dedicated topic for our group. So thanks for that
It
question,
is,
Brenda, and call
and
out.
it isn't an app that'll make it faster, just so you've been forewarned. That it takes somebody going through your code and figuring out what needs to be done. So.
All right. Well, Brenda, thanks so much for submitting your site. I think we'll switch. Lori, which one would you like to do next?
That's a good question. Do you have a preference? You can pick the next one.
All right, we'll just go in order. So is it the one that you mentioned that you had been shopping on, Lori?
Yeah, let me get it up on browser. Well, I use Browser Stack because I'm not the programmer, but anyway, I was bringing up the phone here, or a phone. So.
I've got it screen shared as a mobile device too.
Oh, okay. So this page, when it hit me initially, and again, I was on a phone, it's a little less obvious on the desktop, but most of these issues translate to it. I will say that the enter wallpaper dimensions is a much better presentation here on mobile, because this is, what do I want them to do? I'm showing them the mural, and I need their wall size so they know what it's going to cost, and so on and so forth. I don't like that they expect the human to make, the shopper to make the margin of error, but I guess that I would be inclined to suggest that be added automatically, like most of the other wallpaper sites I've ordered off of. But the rest of this page just continues to go on, and it's like language vomit. First of all, you've got tags on there. This is a Shopify site, and I realized the purpose of the tags, but having them on the page and so high up where people are trying to figure out what to buy, it doesn't make any sense. It's just confusing. And if anything, it distracts, because somebody may click one of those to figure out what happens, and now they've lost the product they're shopping on. They also put the samples as a separate product. You know, they got so fancy with their how to buy that they don't just have, you know, most of them give you a choice of sizes and then or order a sample. So we've got all this stuff. We've got the pitch for the kit, and you have to get way down here before you even learn anything about the product. And so I like that some of this info is easy to find here, but I don't like what it does to the product page. And all that extra stuff adds to load speed. I didn't even speed test it because I found this page was so confusing. It was just too hard to make a purchase. And curious as to whether anybody else reads it that way, especially like Agent.
Yeah, my first read was, oh, there's a search bar as my first call to action on a product page. That's the kind of thing where sometimes we need to be a little bit more nuanced about where we place nudges or actions. So it could be that the search bar makes sense as the main thing to do on any landing page in the home page. But once you're on a product page, you might de-emphasize it and not have that exposed field, which draws your attention, and just have an icon. So you can still do it, but it's not the main thing that you're drawn to. I'm overwhelmed, Lori, by this page and how many CTAs are on the page. And I know as we were scrolling through it, I wasn't sure if I needed to, like, if this was a stepper and I needed to do each thing, or if there's like 4 or 5 things I can buy here. So I still am not really sure, and feel like I would probably spend some time wondering and trying to figure it out.
That's what hit me. It was the initial gut feel to this page was, what the heck am I supposed to do? And then I showed it to Matt, and for those of you who don't know, he's a CRO as well, and we just kind of went, there's just, what if I want a sample? If this is as far as I've gone, how do I order a sample? How would I know that it's lower down the page? Mm-hmm. Do I really need to be pitched for a kit and get the instruction videos now? You know, it's just too many things to do, like you said.
Yeah, it seems like there could be more of like a stepper of all these upsells, like you've added the wallpaper. Would you like to also do XYZ or add this also to your cart? And it does feel like the sample and then the wallpaper pricing doesn't quite jive as separate sections in here too. So I would be curious what their requirements are, if you can just start with a sample and maybe that's a secondary CTA under here versus kind of putting
Or
it as
even a
second
link
step.
that pulls up a pop-up. Want a sample before you buy? There's just a million different ways to do this, and they also don't cover their price per square foot. And that's the first thing I look at because I have to decide if it's within my budget. But yeah.
You know what I would also like to mention on this, and this is the most common mistake that I see a lot of retail or e-commerce businesses make when it comes to desktop versus mobile experience, is the desktop back in the day was designed first. You designed for desktop, and then like when the mobile started to take off, designers started to convert their desktop experience into mobile. And the most common mistake kind of when the designs happen is some designers still design for desktop first. I think that is the big change that needs to happen first, is you design for mobile and then you kind of take that design and expand it to the desktop. Because on a desktop, looking at the site, there's so much real estate and the information is laid out more or less okay. But I think what happened here is when the mobile design was created, it's just, let's just take whatever is on desktop and then just rearrange it on the page to fit into the mobile view. And what you will find is people who use the mobile device, they may not need to see all the extra bells and whistles and details. And it just, your page just becomes super long and it weighs a lot, it loads slower, and there's a lot of irrelevant information to the mobile shopper potentially. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah.
And actually find the desktop more confusing because there's like layers of decisions in here. And then I'm not sure, like some of the CTAs, I think one of the common themes that we see is a lot of times the homepage hero, or in this case, it's the product detail page image, is so big that it kind of hides all the information on landing. So I can imagine if I was taken to this directly from an ad, I would not really be sure what it is this site sells. Is this an image? Is it selling the shirt? Like, I don't really know. And I have to work to figure it out from here. There's not the standard information about the title and the pricing and the information at all. You have to really work for it. So similar to the last site where we talked about like the simple information above the fold, give the opportunity to expand to zoom into the mural, but don't emphasize just the image without a clear action associated with it.
100%. And I want to add, so I'm looking at a very different product and I see there's such a big it's inconsistent what you see or what you're sharing on your screen versus what I'm seeing. So that discrepancy between products is confusing. The product that I'm looking at is for posters. That product detail page looks decent with the exception of maybe rearranging the top huge banner, which doesn't really have any action. And then your second section with a picture and customizations of that poster looks good. If you just swap them around, that might not look as bad. You know what I mean? But to your point, there are some other product pages on the site which are very confusing and don't follow the same structure or layout.
I understand why they put the big photo on the product page first, the lifestyle photo, and that's intent on showing what you sell because it's a visual product. But if this breaches the basic rule, we have no idea what's for sale on this page. As you look at that fold, what are they selling? And because they've got the dimension thing now, not on the poster, as you come down to customize, yeah, this one's not as bad. You can actually see the image there, but on the wall panels, you actually have to give it dimensions before you see what the product looks like with nothing in the way.
And I kind of like this upsell within this section as well, a little bit better than what we saw on the other page. It only makes sense if it's a pretty directly tied item versus something that's like a post decision, like getting an installation might be something you add as a second step. But I do like this implementation better than what we saw on the last page, where you can pick the frame right next to the size. I would want to test things like the order of these and how people think of it. But I will say to your point, Lori, we don't know what it is. I'm like, I really like the stuffed animal. Is this what they're selling? Oh, I'm disappointed. This is not what they're doing. So things to keep in mind.
But I will
Yeah.
call out though that I think this site does have very cool upsell or cross-sell opportunities, like at the bottom, right? Like when you're buying a wall, a poster, there's recommendation on the wallpaper kits, or sorry, if you're buying a wallpaper, there's wallpaper kits, right? That you need to go with it, which again will increase your average order value. So I do like that.
I feel like I'm missing something. I can't add to cart. Does anyone see what I've not selected? Borderless, white border. Ah, no, I can do it. So borderless, if I didn't select here, that's just kind of a
Weird.
bug, right? I assume. Oh, maybe I have to pick the accessory that corresponds with which my selection is up here.
So they
So
have
that should
conditional
really-
variants and it's not marked.
It should just only show the options that are related to what you have, or act like cross them out in like a disabled font. Some sort of guidance there would be better.
Yeah, this is not a small business, and I bet they paid an arm and 6 legs for this site.
Mhm.
But yeah,
And these are like huge conversion bugs, right? To me, this is like a critical error that is leading to lower conversion rates on their site, because to Lori's point, you went somewhere else to buy something as a result of this page, I think is what you said earlier. And these are the kinds of things where if I can't add to cart here, I'm not going to play with it, even as long as I did on this call to figure it out. I'll just assume the site doesn't work and I shouldn't trust them.
yeah. So,
Lori, do you want to try to
anyway,
squeeze in one more with our last 9 minutes?
Yeah. We could do the online lighting.
Yeah, let's do it.
You can start this one.
Awesome. All right. So I don't think they're on the call today. So we're going to make some assumptions about their audience. We've got some information at the top here that is more like value proposition and phone number. It's really kind of missing what the site is and who it's for. It kind of leans on the images and the logo to teach us that. So I'd love to have something that's a little bit more direct above the fold for first-time visitors in particular. They've got a lot going on in the navigation. I do like the sorting in this smart lighting section, where they help you narrow in or look between the options there. This section doesn't look like it has that order, so it felt kind of overwhelming to look at. So sometimes we can just give us a little bit more breathing room and help organize it in a way that's more intuitive to understand and find it. It doesn't appear to be alphabetical. And it could be that I just want to shop all or shop your best interior. So maybe there's an opportunity here to create some subcategories that narrow the product selection and get people jumping in without having to make a decision without seeing any product. What do you think, Lori?
I think that this one is not particularly easy to shop by navigation for the reasons you mentioned. I also find the search bar is a little bit obscured. Mm-hmm. So usually if you have a large catalog, you want to make it easy for people to just get there. Now it may be that was de-emphasized intentionally because shoppers for lighting browse, but that was one of the things. As I go down the page, I find that a lot of these text features are huge. So I like like the review section. I mean, to me, it just feels like a space suck, and yet it's an important thing to have on the site. The other issue is, boy, this site is all about Laura Ashley. We've got a category, we've got the big banner at top, we got another set here of their newest collection. One of the things that caught me right away was we have something labeled our favorites. I don't care what your favorites are. I'm the buyer. So it could be our customers' favorites or our best sellers. There's a lot of different ways to use it, but the site's about them, not about me. And that matters. When I click into a product page, and I just clicked on that lamp in the middle for the heck of it. So it's kind of interesting. What is this click here to request a stock update? I clicked and it's a mail to link that doesn't work. So I don't know why it didn't work, but this is easily solved if you're using something like Klaviyo. There's also apps for it that will allow you to notify somebody when it comes back in stock, which is a great feature to have. But anyway, I caught that. I don't see any review stars at the top. Is there any reviews? So this was something I noticed on all their pages. It seems like from the reviews down, this is standard content. And I don't think the who we are belongs here. I think you're making a page. First of all, people don't tend to read. So you've added all this load time. It's duplicated on every page you have, so it isn't helping your SEO. Where is the product description? Oh, it's hidden under here. And it's big blocks of text, which are hard to read. But I love, let's talk about, great. I love the one piece. In fact, it's clever. One piece delivery guarantee. I assume that means it arrives in great shape. We've got, and these all click, but it took me off page, which is not awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those could just be little like nudges to the full thing. I see this like no quibble returns policy. I'd love to see that by the decision near the add to cart. Like, here are 3 reasons to buy from us.
Yeah,
but I would
needs
completely
to be right
miss
under
that.
the button. I just realized that it's underneath all the information at the bottom, which is not the best place for it. We also have some distractions quite literally under the product photos. See where we've got this? You view the entire brand, view all our lighting. We've got the add to cart button matches the coloring of these secondary value propositions. The related products, I guess they're cross sells. They're not really related products. This should be items that pertain to what's up here. So like if this is part of a collection, complete the look would be a great one. We've also seen frequently bought together is a more generic way of doing it. And then there's no reviews for the actual product either.
Yeah. I'm noticing kind of 2 things here. One is, at least the way I shop, so I would want to see how their customers shop, but without that information, is I tend to think about like one room at a time. We're not doing like a full redesign. We're just kind of like, hey, I redid my office. Hey, we're redoing the family room. And I think some of this language is helpful. I know it's interior or exterior, but I still kind of want to be able to find, what are your recommended products for my family room? Like, what are common lights used in that type of space? And I wonder if it would be helpful for them to like hear from their customers and understand in their words, how do you think about your purchases? How do you decide what goes where? Do they shop in that way that I do? Or are there other ways where they just fall in love with the item and then find a home for it within their house? Separately, I'm going to see if this add to cart flow is the same. So when I notice I add to cart and my actions are continue shopping or edit my cart, view or edit my cart, I don't have anything that says check out now. So I can't scroll down to see if there's something hidden. And I think continue shopping is more prominent since it's first position and they have the same design. So I think if in order to check out, I have to go to cart. And if I go to my cart, then I can proceed securely instead of checkout. And then there's a couple options below the fold. I do like having those duplicated there. And then I can finally get to checkout. And so I think just CTA terminology, having a single CTA, that's the secondary has a different design treatment. So the default is taking you to checkout, and then a secondary CTA has you continue shopping, will nudge visitors across the finish line.
Yeah, I will also say that be careful if you get creative with your language, like proceed securely. Now, this site's in Ireland. Perhaps that's an appropriate response for an Irish audience. But in the US, people would go, huh? I mean, these days there's an assumption the card is secure. Nobody stops and thinks about that unless their browser warns them. So really what you just want them to do is get out there and take their money.
And Lori, we are right at time, so I'm going to stop screen share. Thanks everyone for being on today, for sharing your stores, for sharing your input. We'd love to have you on for our next store critique. If you have a store or if you work with anyone who would like to have their store critique, so please shoot us an email. Let us know you're interested. I think that's a wrap for today. Thanks all for being on.
And by the way, Mark, Igor, if you guys have some topic that you're an expert on, pitch us. We don't charge people to speak.
Thank you.
Let's connect. Happy to do that. I love this session, by the way. I would love to be invited into the next one. This is awesome what you guys are doing.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Reach out. We're open-minded.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.